Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Been a very busy summer. I've had lots of projects on the go. Unfortunately, for the vast majority of them, I was unable to record any footage for it. The problem is, a lot of these jobs I'm in either people's places or I'm in a place that has a very awkward positioning and I can't actually do the job and record at the same time, because most of it I am working on my own. But in this particular case, it was in a stairwell, so first off, there's no one's apartment to worry about, and I could record at my leisure. And the other thing is, I needed an extra pair of hands because it is a long hand railing, and to get it in the proper position when I finally screwed it into where it came from, I needed, like I said, an extra pair of hands to make sure it's held properly in place. So managed to cover all the things that I needed for the ability to record this. So this is a hand railing that was in a stairwell for a condominium apartment building. And as you can see, someone treated it really badly and managed to rip it off the wall. And the other thing, of course, is the top section here got splintered, the screw got pulled out, and, well, basically there's, first off, a splinter hazard as far as hands go, and secondly, it looks rather unsightly. The only restraint I really had on this project is I couldn't really spend a whole lot of money to get it to work again, so I had to improvise a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is, as you saw, I marked and then cut off the top section of the triangular bit that was sticking out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plane this down and get this as smooth as possible, and at least looking as reasonable as possible as well. And then I'm going to sand that down nice and smooth, stain this as best I can, because I couldn't get the actual stain. The problem with a lot of these buildings that are built, they end up, well, getting something that's mass produced, and it's very difficult to get precisely what they were using in the first place. So I matched it as best I could. It turned out not too bad, which is fine. But that's not really the important part. The important part for a job like this is, first off, it has to be really secure to the wall, because as you can tell, people treat these things really badly. And secondly, the other thing, I can't have any possible splinters or anything like that. Now I could have sanded or planed this down much further and got rid of those little holes, but you end up with less meat here, and I didn't really want to end up with too thin a piece, and to also not to deviate too much from the original look of it. Trying to keep it as close as possible. Again, as I can't spend too much time on this. There's a certain restraint, of course, on, like I said, how much money the condominium apartment building is going to want to pay to have this replaced. It is a safety thing, so they do have to have it fixed, but they kind of also have a condition on that is, don't spend too much money, because what I could have done, I suppose, is build a completely new handrail, but that is not an option. So this is the stain I came up with. It's pretty close. And once that's all soaked in, I think I did about 2 or 3 coats, and cleaned it all up, and it looked pretty good. It was fine. You can see it's a little bit lighter, but again, like I said, it's not that important. Important bits are no splinters, and of course as secure as possible. Now this was originally held together with 2 screws, one on the bottom, which is to the right of the screen, and the one at the top, which I had filed off and sanded down and everything else, so it's not really there anymore. I originally thought what I could have done here is, once everything was fixed up, I could just run that screw through the bottom and then use a very strong glue to hold it firmly in place. I tried it several times, but I couldn't really get the proper fitting for it, and I gave up. It's not strong enough. It was going to, again, be a hazard as far as safety goes. So what I'm going to do here now instead is I'm going to mark it for dowels, and I get to use my new acrylic dowel jig on this, which is kind of nice. So here it is here. It will give me a nice straight hole through to the center. The only thing I need to be careful about is matching up the top piece and the bottom piece together, so that when I stick this back together, all that work I did doesn't need to be redone. So very careful, mark the holes carefully, and drill as straight as possible. All I need to do here is, of course, just start the hole. And because I marked, as you can see there, the line, all I have to do is keep that as parallel as possible and run that through. So I drilled the 4 holes, and I'm going to put the dowel pegs in. I was off by, I think, a 32nd of an inch. It was enough that there's a bit of a lip there, and I ended up having to sand that down again and restain it. It took an extra 20 minutes of time. It was not hugely important, but it would have saved an awful lot of time if this would have gone together in its original format with just with the original screws. But anyway, these things happen. I'm not too terribly concerned about it, and I don't think I'm going to have any issues with them, because this is going to end up being way stronger than it originally was. Because as we're going to proceed here, you're going to see that there's some other issues they had with how they attached this to the wall, and it actually isn't really that surprising that someone managed to rip it off the wall. So here I got 2 dowel pegs on this side. This is PL I'm using here. It's a really good construction glue. It's very, very strong as long as it has enough time to set. And the only issue I have with it for something like this, where I usually just use wood glue, it is a lot more thick, and it is considerably more difficult to get everything into position and then held together so that there aren't any seams. And it took a little while, and because of that little extra effort to do that, I didn't end up recording it all, because I'm in the process of trying to get everything done, and sometimes I forget to hit the record button. So you can see there, just on the one on the right, it's a little bit off. Once it's firmly in place, that mostly disappears, as you can see, but it was off by a sufficient amount that I had to do the additional sanding and stuff. So I'm going to end up turning this off here in a second, because, like I said, this all has to be squeezed together, and like I said, I couldn't do that and record at the same time. So anyway, long story short, is I got this into position, and like I said, it was very solid, especially compared to the way it was. It was just a couple of screws holding it together. So anyway, that was the first part, the first problem of this. This is the second problem. These are the blocks that hold it onto the wall. And as you can see, all it is a hole drilled through, and that hole was held onto the wall with one single screw. So what I've done instead is I've drilled with Forstner bits, wide hole, all the way till about half an inch from the bottom, and then I'm going to drill at that as well with just a regular drill bit for the kind of screws and anchors that I would use. So instead of just having one screw holding this whole thing on the drywall, I'm going to have 2 anchors for each one, plus glue, and it's way more solid than it was, that's for sure. Again, I would rather have set these into some form of stud that was there, but all they had, and as you're going to see when I start putting this together on the wall, there is maybe 3/4 of an inch between the back end of the drywall and the actual concrete of the stairwell. There isn't enough space, and the only anchors that they have for the drywall for this thing is a very thin metal, and it wasn't sufficient, so this is a better option. So these are where they go, and they're all sanded off. You can see they've been painted over a few times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in position. I'm going to use the drill bit that I used to drill the holes as a center for that. And I'm going to tap them in. I drilled those holes. You see I had to snip off a little bit of the drywall anchor and then just set them in place. There you go. That is very easy to do. It's nice and flush now. Only thing that's left to do here is put some glue on it and screw that into place. And then what I did is after I put these blocks on, I let it cure for about 3 or 4 days without the hand railing in place. And the reason why I did that, I want to make sure it was good and solid before I did the final assembly. So there you go. That was basically the project I did, and it turned out pretty good. They said the important bit is It's no longer a safety hazard. It's good and solid to the wall. To get this off now, you'd have to basically break the drywall. You'd have to crack everything, and that is unlikely to happen. So there you go. It's nice and solid. You can see the bit of difference in staining there, but that's basically the only thing that came up. No splinters, and that's good and solid. Anyway, thank you for listening. Leave some comments. Let me know what you think about all this, and I'll see you in the next video. And bye for now.